This strong disabled girl was seen pushing her car alone under the scorching sun, her arms trembling with effort, her face soaked in sweat, and her determination unwavering. Her car had run out of fuel in the middle of the road, and not a single person had stopped to help, until a kind-hearted worker at a nearby gas station noticed her struggle from afar. Without a moment's hesitation, he runs to her, calling out to her and assuring her that she didn't need to push any further. He told her to get inside the car and rest while he would handle the pushing. Slowly and steadily, step by step, he helped her get the car to the gas station. She was exhausted but deeply grateful, thanking him repeatedly for his kindness. Once at the pump, the girl politely explained to another fuel attendant that she had a critical business meeting in just 5 minutes, but had accidentally left her wallet at home. She respectfully asked for a small amount of fuel, promising to return and pay right after her meeting. But the man, after she told him all of this, refused to give the fuel because it is against the company policy. She tried to convince him, even showed her proposal documents to prove she was telling the truth, and explained that she had worked for years to prepare for this opportunity. But instead of understanding her situation, the worker coldly dismissed her, saying fuel could not be given to anyone without immediate payment. His tone was sharp and his eyes indifferent, as though her words meant nothing. The girl's voice began to shake as she pleaded again, her fingers clutching her documents, explaining the life-changing importance of her meeting and how she had no other choice, how every second now counted, and how one kind gesture could change everything. But the man remained unmoved, refusing her request without a trace of compassion, completely ignoring her disability and the panic written all over her face. The kind worker who had helped push her car overheard everything and quietly stepped forward again. He tried to persuade his colleague to be empathetic just this once, reminding him that sometimes rules must bend for real human needs. But the colleague remained firm, warning him not to get involved and reminding him sternly that helping her would be against company policy, and that they'd both get into trouble. Despite the risk, the kind worker made a brave and selfless choice. He decided to give the fuel for her. He opened his wallet and looked at the little money he had left, which he had been carefully saving to buy medication for his disabled grandson. Still, without hesitation, he said for himself he would take full responsibility for whatever consequences followed. Even the other worker tried to stop him, warning him again that he could be fired and lose everything. But the kind man stood firm in his decision, saying that sometimes losing a job was better than losing one's humanity. He made sure her car was filled up properly, and the girl, overwhelmed with gratitude, thanked him again and again with teary eyes, promising to repay him and tell the world what he had done. But all of his actions were seen by their boss unnoticed. Then, without a moment to spare, she rushed off to make it to her meeting in time. But in her hurry, she didn't realize that one of her most important documents had slipped from her folder and fallen near the pump. The kind worker noticed the paper fluttering near the tire tracks and picked it up carefully. He glanced at it and immediately realized it might be crucial. Without wasting time, he prepared to follow her and return it. But just as he was about to step out, his boss called him. He scolded the kind worker harshly, accusing him of disobeying company policy, putting their reputation at risk, and undermining authority. Even though the worker calmly explained that he could pay from his own money for the girl, the manager didn't accept that and showed no understanding. He reminded him that this wasn't the first time he had broken minor rules to help someone, and, without further discussion, fired him on the spot. The man tried to convince his boss why he did that, but the boss had already decided and didn't change his mind. The man was devastated, not only for losing his job, but because he also hadn't yet returned the missing document. Even in that difficult situation, he decided to give the documents to the girl. So he took the address written on the paper, determined to find the girl and make sure she had everything she needed for her big opportunity. Meanwhile, the girl had arrived at her meeting, a major pitch that could change the entire direction of her life. But there, she also faced another problem. The girl who collected the proposal was rude. She tried to underestimate her by her situation, even though she saw that she was calm and handed over her proposal confidently, trying to push aside the stress she had just been through. But as the receptionist began reviewing the documents, she noticed the document was not complete. There were missing important documents. So she said the proposal would be considered incomplete without these missing documents. The girl's heart dropped and panic set in. She didn't know where to find that document, so she begged for just a little time and one chance to search and bring the missing papers. But the receptionist was cold and dismissive, telling her the deadline was final and there would be no second chances. The girl pleaded, her voice cracking, explaining how much was at stake, but her cries fell on deaf ears. She stepped outside, feeling her entire future collapsing in front of her, feeling like all her years of struggle and perseverance were about to be wasted. Just then, as if fate itself refused to give up on her, the kind worker called her, holding the missing document in his hand. The girl's eyes widened in disbelief as she ran to him, tears spilling down her face. He explained she dropped the documents in the fuel station. She was overwhelmed with emotion and his unlimited kindness and asked to take a photo with him so she could remember the moment forever. With no time to spare, appreciative and hopeful that she is unbreakable, she happily rushed back inside the office and happily handed over the final document. The receptionist, surprised and annoyed, pointed out that she was 3 minutes past the deadline and refused to accept it. But this time, the girl stood tall, her confidence unwavering. She made it clear that if they refused to accept the complete proposal, she would take the matter to higher authorities and pursue legal action for discrimination. The receptionist, intimidated and unsure how to respond, finally gave in and accepted the documents. Months passed, and she had won the $1 million contract. Her dreams had finally come true. But even in that moment of joy, she never forgot the man who had helped her when no one else did. She had no way of contacting him, but she remembered the photo they took together, so she posted it online, sharing their beautiful story and asking the world to help find him. She described his incredible selflessness and how his actions had completely changed her life. The post quickly went viral, touching hearts across the country. And by a beautiful coincidence, the man's grandson, who, like the girl, also had a disability, came across the post one evening while scrolling. He instantly recognized his grandfather in the photo and, with trembling fingers, messaged the girl, explaining their difficult situation. At that time, the kind man and his grandson had been evicted from their home because they couldn't pay the rent, so they were living on the street. The man was heartbroken because he couldn't do anything and thought it was over. The girl suddenly arrived at their location with a beautiful car. The kind man, overwhelmed by life's cruelty, suddenly saw her pull up in the beautiful car. She stepped out with a warm smile, and when their eyes met, he recognized her instantly. He tried to apologize, saying he couldn't help with anything now, but she stopped him. She told him that his one act of kindness had completely changed her life, and now it was her turn to change his. She handed him a job contract at her new company, the keys to a new home she had bought for him and his grandson, and a car so he would never again have to walk under the blazing sun. And finally, she opened the trunk and brought out a beautiful gift for his grandson, who smiled brighter than he had in years. In just a few moments, their entire lives were transformed. One small act of kindness, done selflessly, had come full circle. The man had lost his job, but gained a future, a family, and a legacy that would live on forever in the hearts of those who heard his story.